What happened in the late 60s and early 70s shattered the trust between the people and the government, possibly irrevocably.
They were lying to us. You couldn't trust them. You can't trust authority. Can't trust the cops. You can't trust the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. And it was all this, these guys have betrayed us, these guys have betrayed us, these guys have betrayed us.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
But I am somebody. I am black. Beautiful.
Shoot all the niggas.
Why?
Because why should they come over here and wreck the city?
I think the American dream is in the past. It's long gone.
Because if you don't flaunt it, who's going to know you're homosexual or not? What they wanted to do was to flaunt it.
We're praying for him to be delivered from his deviant lifestyle, Father.
Watergate was the high point of the 70s, and I think the lead up to what finally happened, and then what happened itself, which disillusioned a great portion of the country in the 1970s, also affected filmmakers, because probably if you were looking for the single defining phrase that motivated the filmmakers at that time, it would probably be moral ambiguity.
It's all about sex. The lack of value, the lack of morals is all to do, and the immorality is sexual immorality. But in fact, when you look at it again, because it's a very dense movie, it's actually more dense, more full of particles than a lot of Howell's work. And when you look at it again, you see that there's all sorts of areas of valuelessness, and political, economic, all sorts of ways that we can see now have become just a way of life.
Night dinners, those that take place in beauty salons, those that take place everywhere. It was a way of sort of bringing them all together. On the East Coast, you could call it 6 degrees of separation. And out here, it was just shampoo. Even though the characters were flawed, or perhaps especially because they were flawed, audiences could identify with them because, in the first place, theirs were flaws that either arose from or were victimized by what they perceived to be a very flawed.
Nurse Ratched really should personify the powerful, bad mama. And suddenly it occurred to me the real dangerous evil is always trying to look like an angel. Everything is done in the name of helping you. We are going to help you live better. Because as individuals, we need institutions. We create them to help us live. We even pay them to help us live. And very often we end up being dependent. Listen, I lived in that society. Communist Party was our big nurse, and all we were dreaming about is to grab that big thing and throw it through the barbed wire and go out to see the free world.
A lot of people credit a lot of things in the 70s due to the Vietnam and the post-Vietnam era, and a nation restless with and examining itself, and how did we get into war, and why are we going to be the watchdog for the world, and all these questions that we had, and there was self-doubt.
There was an intensity and pressure in the air. Maybe just coming out of the war and coming out of what was very unstable and unhappy times, there was an urge to, let's do something good. Let's say something.
This infected all areas of the culture in the 1970s, and without a doubt, it affected filmmakers' attitudes.
When times are bad, When people are frightened, when they're insecure, when they don't know what in the world is going on, they turn to artists. And they said, build us a shelter, anything, a lean-to, a little cabin, an igloo. Build us a protective shell so we can understand where we are. I don't care if it's a scary shell, just so it's a shell. I was in debt, my marriage broke up, I lost the new girlfriend, everything collapsed. Then I wrote that script out of that emptiness. I sat down, I wrote 2 drafts in 10 days, got in the car and left. It had to come out of me. It just had to come out of me. It was just, like an animal inside my chest.
All I can say is identified with the Travis Bickle character of being the outsider, sort of the dispossessed, and seeing the danger, of course, of Travis's character, where he feels one way and then fantasizes, but then acts out the fantasy in violence, which is obviously wrong. I felt totally understood him and totally felt the same way.
What happened was I gave it to Brian and said, tell me what you think of this. And Brian, gave it to the Phillipses and so forth.
When I read the script, Brian De Palma gave it to me. And at that point, I was still making Mean Streets and nobody had seen it. So I wasn't considered a real possibility of making the film.
Julia and I saw a rough cut of Mean Streets. And Michael also saw it. And we were talking, we said, this is really, Scorsese and De Niro need to do this. We all had to have some success. So Michael and Julia won an Oscar for Sting. Bobby won an Oscar for Godfather 2. Marty had a success with Alice Doesn't Live Here. I sold a very high-priced script. Nobody really thought it was going to make money, but it was kind of in the spirit of the times to do an adventurous film like this with all these young buds.
The establishment, as it was called so frequently, what it said about itself and about the country was wildly at odds with what was emerging. I think gave rise to a ton of movies that dealt with the disparity between a conventional view of the country, and what the filmmakers felt the country was about.
We didn't have quick responses to Vietnam. They didn't rush out and make a bunch of movies about Vietnam. It's not what happened. Everybody was trying to understand.
Anything but a movie about the war at home. My character was in the way in that movie of the conventional Hollywood love story. Hal. He had to have that character because I'm the movie. They're the love story. They're the popular movie. But I'm the ode to Vietnam because I'm the cripple one.
I'm not going to make excuses for what happened. It happened. I needed somebody. I was lonely.
Bullshit.
It's not...
Don't.
Bob, I was lonely.
Don't bullshit.
I need... It's not bullshit.
Bullshit!
No, Bob, please.
God damn it, it's bullshit. Everybody needs somebody, for Christ's sake. If it's over with us, it's over.
Well, what are you saying? That you're not even going to make the effort?
What I'm saying is I do not belong in this house. Please. And they're saying that I don't belong over there.
Hal Ashby, he was watching everything. He would never interfere, but he would just set it up. The speech at the high school was an improvised scene. And we got this scene, and I said, Hal, I got to be able to say something to the kids. He says, you got it.
And now I'm here to tell you that I have killed for my country or whatever.
Oh. For a real advocate to say that, directed by a real advocate, non-war, non-violence, for him to say, I'm not saying don't go. I'm just saying there's a choice to be made here, and it's yours.
Hal Ashby was sort of the quintessential spirit of the 60s radical hippie. And he brought a kind of freewheeling, irreverent approach to filmmaking that was wonderful. And in his best work, it was very influential.
I mean, he had a sense of truth and what was a real moment. And he didn't like to watch moments that were not real. And he was willing to let, to a fault sometimes, things go wherever he felt they should go as long as they stayed real.
They're so incredible, Hal Ashby's films. So beautifully made, so like most delicate stitching, lovely. What I love about him is that he focuses on one subject that's previously not been broached, probably a taboo subject. In Harold and Maude, it's ageism. Coming Home, it's paraplegic sex. Last Detail, it was demystification of the military. And the corporations choosing a simpleton for a president. Does that sound familiar?
People loved Hal Ashby, and there was a reason. He was never judgmental. Never. He would never judge an actor. Never. So you say, how did he direct? I don't know. There was a scene where this camera was supposed to come up and end up in a close-up, and I was blowing the lines. And he sits down, and I said, gee, Hal, I'm so sorry. You know, I can't see the guy. He said, what's the difference? He said, look, he said, we're having a good time, aren't we? We're with good company. What a nice time. It's great. We're together. We're all making a movie. And that's all. He said, I don't care. We stay here all afternoon. You know, this is it. Can't be better. Wow.
One of my absolute favorite films of Hal's is Being There. And Hal, in a way, was John C. Gardner. He liked to watch.
I loved her work. I always thought she was a first-rate actress. And so I went to meet her, and I said, Faye, I know the first question you're going to ask me. And she looked up, and she said, what? And I said, you're going to ask, where's her vulnerability? And I said, there is none. And if I see you trying to sneak some in, I'll take it out in the cutting room.
Network, written by Paddy Chayefsky, was so bold and so accusatory and so revelatory about the media, exposing to, I think, an audience that actually didn't understand that their media was totally corporatized.